More than 40 years have passed since Moonlighting first lit up American television, and the people who brought Blue Moon Investigations to life went through addiction, illness, heartbreak, and reinvention that nobody watching in 1985 could have predicted. One of them was found dead on his own rural property, and the state medical examiner ruled it a suicide. Another built a second career as one of the most beloved character actors in Hollywood before dying of pancreatic cancer far too soon. A third became a two-time Emmy-winning drama star before most viewers ever realized she had once shared a kiss with David Addison. A fourth was a real Heisman family legend who briefly threatened to steal Maddie away for good, years before finding the role that would truly define his career. And the man at the very center of it all, the wisecracking detective who made Moonlighting a phenomenon, is now living through a battle that has nothing to do with scripts or ratings at all. The show itself almost didn't survive long enough to matter. Production was so notoriously delayed that entire weeks of reruns had to be substituted at the last minute, and the two lead actors reportedly could barely stand to be in the same room together, off camera, by the later seasons. And yet, what they built together, in fits and starts, became one of the most influential dramedies American television has ever produced. A show so unusual, it was nominated for both Best Drama and Best Comedy by the Directors Guild of America in the same year, a first in the Guild's 50-year history. He played David's slicker, sleazier older brother, the huckster who could out-hustle David at his own game, a walking punchline with a comb-over and a grin. Charles Rocket brought a manic, unsettling energy to Richard Addison that made every one of his appearances feel like a small, chaotic event. He was 36 years old when he first appeared on the show in the fall of 1985, at the top of the second season, and he arrived already carrying the weight of one of the most notorious moments in television history. Charles Rocket was born Charles Adams Clavery on August 28, 1949, in Bangor, Maine, the son of Mary Aurelia Fogler and Sumner Abbott Clavery. His maternal grandfather had served as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, but young Charles had no interest in following a conventional path. He attended the Rhode Island School of Design in the late 1960s, immersing himself in the same underground Providence arts scene that produced Talking Heads frontman David Byrne and future filmmaker Gus Van Sant. He fronted his own band, the Fabulous Motels, playing accordion, and worked for years as a local television news anchor in Colorado Springs and Nashville, reporting under invented names like Charles Kennedy before television executives ever knew who he really was. In 1980, a demo tape of his newscasts caught the attention of NBC, and Charles Rocket was hired as a cast member and weekend update anchor on Saturday Night Live during the show's rocky, widely mocked post-original cast season. Then, on a February 1981 broadcast, Rocket uttered an unscripted profanity live, on air, believed to be the first time the word had ever been broadcast on network television. He was fired within weeks. For years afterward, that single moment threatened to define his entire career. Moonlighting gave him something closer to redemption. As Richard Addison, he appeared across roughly 6 episodes between 1985 and 1987, sparring with Bruce Willis in scenes so kinetic that longtime fans still list them among the show's most purely entertaining set pieces. In one memorable subplot, Richard even briefly made a pass at Maddie Hayes herself, provoking one of David Addison's angriest on-screen outbursts of the entire series. Rocket went on to build a genuinely substantial character actor career, a memorably slimy network president on the cult series Max Headroom, an angel of death on Touched by an Angel, the villain in Dumb and Dumber, and a beloved supporting turn in Disney's Hocus Pocus. He married his college girlfriend Beth Krellin in 1972 aboard a decommissioned battleship, and the couple remained married for the rest of his life, raising a son, Zane, born in 1976. But behind the steady stream of guest roles, something was quietly breaking down. On October 7, 2005, Charles Rocket was found dead in a field on his property in Canterbury, Connecticut. He was 56 years old. 10 days later, the state medical examiner ruled his death a suicide, and investigators found no evidence of any criminal involvement. Friends and colleagues from his Providence arts days remembered him not as the punchline of a censorship scandal, but as one of the sharpest, funniest, and most quietly generous people they had ever known. One fellow Moonlighting fan later recalled that Rocket's most memorable line on the show came when David Addison threatened to kill him, and Richard, taking his own pulse mid-scene, calmly replied, "I beg to differ." The man who once out-hustled David Addison on screen had spent a career trying to outrun a single moment from 1981. And in the end, the two never fully let go of each other. He was the perpetually flustered, endlessly loyal Blue Moon investigator who tangled constantly with Herbert Viola and never quite got the respect he felt he deserved. Jack Blessing joined Moonlighting in its third season, and though he was never one of the show's headline names, longtime viewers often say the series lost a little of its ensemble chemistry once his run eventually ended. He was 35 years old when he joined the cast in 1986, arriving after a genuinely unusual path into show business. Jack Blessing was born on July 29, 1951, in Baltimore, Maryland, and raised in the city's suburbs. He graduated from Calvert Hall College High School in 1969 and went on to Frostburg State University, where he played the male lead in a college production of Romeo and Juliet. After graduating, he enlisted in the United States Army, serving from 1972 to 1975, with postings in California and Germany through the Defense Language Institute. Only after his discharge did he move to Boston and begin performing with an acclaimed improvisational comedy troupe called The Proposition, taking courses at Harvard on the side. A Paramount casting director spotted him during his final year with the group, and Hollywood came calling. McGillicuddy became his most visible role, appearing in 17 episodes across the show's final 3 seasons from 1986 to 1989, sparring constantly and good-naturedly with Curtis Armstrong's Herbert Viola over Agnes DiPesto's affections. Before Moonlighting, Blessing had already carried the lead role in a short-lived 1983 Disney fantasy comedy called Small and Fry, about a detective who could shrink to 6 inches tall, a premise so strange that the series lasted only 4 episodes, but it was enough to put him on the casting director's radar. After Moonlighting ended, Blessing worked steadily for decades, a recurring role as the unbalanced building manager on The Naked Truth, opposite Téa Leoni, guest spots on MASH, The Golden Girls, Family Ties, CSI, and The X-Files, and a long later career run as Jack Powers, the amiable co-owner of an aviation business, on George Lopez from 2002 to 2007. He also carved out a substantial second career as a voice actor, appearing in Shrek the Third, Megamind, Paranorman, B-Movie, and Ants. Notably, he even appeared in a 5th season episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, playing a time-traveling FBI agent investigating the Starship Enterprise. His personal life carried its own quiet sweetness. He met his future wife, actress Laura Staley, while the two were working as understudies on a comedy production at the A. Manson Theater in Los Angeles, and the couple remained married for 32 years, raising 2 sons, Ian and Christopher. On November 14, 2017, Jack Blessing died at his home in Chatsworth, California, after a battle with pancreatic cancer. He was 66 years old. Colleagues who worked alongside him for decades remembered him, almost without exception, as one of the kindest men in the industry. A rare thing to hear, said so consistently about anyone who spent 30 years on television sets. Long before she became an Emmy-winning drama star, she was simply David Addison's old flame, the woman who walked back into his life for one soaked, complicated episode and reminded audiences that beneath all his wisecracks, David Addison had a genuine romantic history. Dana Delaney appeared as Gillian Armstrong in the 2nd season episode Knowing Her, which aired in November 1985. She was 29 years old at the time, and the role, though brief, arrived at a pivotal, almost invisible turning point in her career. Dana Wells. Delaney was born on March 13, 1956, in New York City, the daughter of an interior designer mother and a plumbing manufacturing executive father. Raised in Stamford, Connecticut, she attended Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, and majored in theater at Wesleyan University, graduating in 1978. She has spoken candidly in later interviews about struggling with disordered eating during those college years. Her early career was a grind familiar to countless New York actors. daytime soap operas like Love of Life and As the World Turns, television commercials, and off-Broadway theater, including a well-reviewed turn in Nicholas Kazan's Blood Moon in 1983. By the mid-1980s, she had relocated to Los Angeles and was picking up guest spots on shows like Magnum, P.I., and Moonlighting. Reliable work, but nothing that suggested stardom was close. In Knowing Her, her character Jillian returns into David's life, asking for his help, escaping a bad marriage. And their old chemistry resurfaces immediately, much to Maddie's visible discomfort. A small but telling glimpse of David Addison's life before Blue Moon Investigations. Delaney's first audition for the lead role that would change everything, the Vietnam War drama China Beach, was actually unsuccessful. Producers reportedly felt she wasn't right for the part. She won the role only after cutting her long hair into a bob at the request of director Paul Schrader for an unrelated film, returning to a second China Beach audition, Transformed. Playing Army nurse Colleen McMurphy from 1988 to 1991, Delaney won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series, along with 2 additional nominations, and was named one of People magazine's 50 Most Beautiful People in the World in 1991. The decades that followed were remarkably full ones. She built a long parallel career as a voice actress, playing Lois Lane across Superman and Justice League animated projects for a span of 17 years, the longest tenure of any actress to voice the character. She starred as Catherine Mayfair on Desperate Housewives from 2007 to 2010, and led the medical drama Body of Proof from 2011 to 2013. She was also famously offered the role of Carrie Bradshaw on Sex and the City in 1998 and turned it down, a part that instead went to Sarah Jessica Parker and became one of television's most iconic roles. As of 2026, Dana Delaney is 70 years old and remains an active working actress, having recently appeared in Paramount Plus's Tulsa King and starred on stage in the Chicago premiere of Highway Patrol at the Goodman Theater. The old flame who reappeared for a single-soaked, complicated 1985 episode became, in the years that followed, one of American television's most consistently respected leading women. For a brief but memorable stretch, he was the clean-cut rival who threatened to actually pull Maddie Hayes away from David Addison for good. A genuine astronaut, no less, offering her the kind of stability David never quite could. Mark Harmon appeared as Sam Crawford across 4 episodes near the end of the show's 3rd season in early 1987. He was 35 years old at the time, already a familiar face to American television audiences, though his single biggest role was still more than 15 years in his future. Thomas Mark Harmon was born on September 2, 1951, in Burbank, California, the son of Heisman Trophy-winning football player and broadcaster Tom Harmon and actress Allyce Knox. Football ran deep in the family. Mark played quarterback at UCLA in the early 1970s before turning fully toward acting. He built a steady television career through the late 1970s and 1980s, including a long run as Dr. Robert Caldwell on Saint Elsewhere, and an unsettling, acclaimed performance as real-life serial killer Ted Bundy in the 1986 television film The Deliberate Stranger. His brief run on Moonlighting the following year came at the height of that momentum, sandwiched between the comedy Summer School and a leading role in The Presidio opposite Sean Connery. On Moonlighting, Sam Crawford's low-key stability made him a genuine threat to David and Maddie's will. They won't they tension, and the character's brief run remains a fan-favorite detour precisely because it works so well. Harmon spent the following decades moving fluidly between procedural dramas and ensemble medical shows. 2 seasons as a Chicago detective on Reasonable Doubts, 4 years as Dr. Jack McNeil on Chicago Hope, and a memorable turn as astronaut Wally Schirra in the acclaimed 1998 miniseries From the Earth to the Moon. Along the way, People magazine named him its sexiest man alive in 1986. Then, in 2003, came the role that would ultimately define his career far more than any before it. Special Agent Leroy Jethro Gibbs on NCIS. Harmon starred in the series for 18 seasons, becoming one of the most recognizable and highest-paid actors in American television, before stepping back from a starring role in 2021, though he continued a producing and occasional on-screen relationship with the franchise afterward. He has been married to actress Pam Dauber, best known for Mork and Mindy, since 1987, and the couple have 2 sons together. As of 2026, Mark Harmon is 74 years old, largely retired from acting, but still closely associated behind the scenes with the NCIS universe he helped build. The astronaut who briefly threatened to steal Maddie away went on to become one of the most durable leading men network television has ever produced. He arrived at Blue Moon Investigations as an awkward, lovelorn temp worker, and slowly, over several seasons, became one of the emotional anchors of the entire show, the gentle, earnest counterpoint to all the sparring and sarcasm happening around him. Curtis Armstrong joined Moonlighting as Herbert Viola in its 3rd season, becoming a featured cast member by the 4th. He was 32 years old when he first appeared in the fall of 1986, and he was already carrying, whether he wanted it or not, one of the most instantly recognizable nicknames in 1980s pop culture. Curtis Jonathan Armstrong was born on November 27, 1953, in Detroit, Michigan, the son of a school teacher, mother of Italian descent, and a father whose work took the family briefly to Switzerland during Curtis's childhood. He graduated from Berkeley High School in Michigan and studied at the Academy of Dramatic Art at Oakland University, graduating in 1975. His first film role came in the 1983 classic Risky Business, playing Miles Dalby, but it was his next role, the following year, that would follow him for the rest of his life. Dudley Booger Dawson in Revenge of the Nerds. He would reprise the role across 3 sequels, and the typecasting became so total that The Simpsons eventually mocked it directly in one of its own episodes. Moonlighting offered Armstrong something the Nerds franchise never quite could: genuine dramatic range, played opposite 2 of the biggest stars on television. Herbert Viola's slow-burning, achingly earnest courtship of Allyce Beasley's Agnes DiPesto became one of the show's most fondly remembered subplots, culminating in an on-screen wedding that many longtime fans still cite as the emotional high point of the series' later seasons. After Moonlighting ended, Armstrong worked almost without pause, a widely respected supporting turn as record executive Ahmet Ertegun in Ray, recurring voice work as Snot on American Dad, the title role on the animated series Dan Vers, and a memorable stretch as the Angel Metatron on Supernatural. He co-hosted the reality competition series King of the Nerds from 2013 to 2015, embracing rather than fighting the role that first made him famous. Off-screen, Armstrong became a genuine authority on the life and music of singer-songwriter Harry Nilsson, producing and writing liner notes for several posthumous reissues of his work, and was inducted into the Baker Street Irregulars, an elite literary society devoted to Sherlock Holmes, with the investiture title An Actor and a Rare One. He married producer Elaine Aronson in 1994, following an earlier marriage to actress Cynthia Carl that ended in 1987. He and Elaine have a daughter, Lily, born in 1996. As of 2026, Curtis Armstrong is 72 years old and remains active in the industry, still recognized daily by his own good-humored admission as Booger, a nickname he says has never once bothered him. The awkward temp worker who couldn't quite find his footing at Blue Moon Investigations spent the following 4 decades proving he could do far more than any one character ever suggested. The rhyming, romantically hopeless receptionist of Blue Moon Investigations was, in her own quiet way, the emotional heartbeat of the entire office. The one character who greeted every crisis with a cheerful couplet instead of a scowl. Allyce Beasley originated the role of Agnes DiPesto from the very first episode and stayed with the character for all 5 seasons. She was 33 years old when the show premiered in March 1985. Already an accomplished stage and television actress with a resume most people would never have guessed sitting behind that reception desk. Allyce Beasley was born Alice Tannenberg on July 6, 1951 in Brooklyn, New York, the daughter of a magazine cartoonist father and a bookkeeper mother. The family moved frequently through her childhood, living in Philadelphia and on Long Island before settling back in New York City. She studied philosophy at SUNY Brockport, initially aspiring to become a poet rather than an actress, a detail that makes Agnes DiPesto's rhyming dialogue feel, in retrospect, almost inevitable. Before Moonlighting, Beasley had already built solid guest star credits on Taxi and Cheers, including a recurring role as Coach Pantuso's daughter on the latter. It was on the set of Taxi that she met actor Vincent Schiavelli, the gaunt, unmistakable character actor, later famous for roles in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Ghost, and Better Off Dead, the very film in which his future Moonlighting castmate Curtis Armstrong also appeared. Beasley and Schiavelli married in 1985, just as Moonlighting was becoming a genuine phenomenon, and had one son, Andrea, before divorcing in 1988. Schiavelli, who later moved to Sicily and became a celebrated food writer, died of lung cancer in 2005 at the age of 57. Beasley herself faced her own serious health scare a decade later. Diagnosed with breast cancer in 1998, she underwent a partial mastectomy and a stem cell transplant, and was declared cancer-free, a fight she has spoken about publicly in the years since. For Moonlighting, Beasley earned 2 Primetime Emmy nominations for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Drama Series in 1986 and 1987, along with a Golden Globe nomination. After the show ended in 1989, she found herself creatively boxed in by the role's popularity for a time, but steadily rebuilt a varied career. A supporting turn in the Stephen King miniseries The Tommyknockers, a memorable small role as a guidance counselor in Legally Blonde, a part in the 1997 comedy Dream with the Fishes, and, perhaps most enduringly, nearly 2 decades as a beloved children's television voice, playing schoolteacher Miss Allerdane Grotke on Disney's Recess and serving as the on-air announcer for Playhouse Disney from 2001 to 2007. She even made her long-overdue Broadway debut in 2010, joining the cast of La Cage aux Folles. She married writer Jim Bosch in 1999, her 3rd marriage, and the two remain together today. As of 2026, Allyce Beasley is 75 years old, still occasionally acting, and still, by every account, one of the warmest people to have come out of the Moonlighting ensemble. She was a former supermodel turned struggling actress when a strange little detective agency script landed on her desk, and the role of Maddie Hayes turned out to be the single biggest comeback of her career. Cybill Shepherd had already lived an entire previous life in Hollywood by the time Moonlighting premiered. One full of acclaim, scandal, and a string of expensive flops that nearly ended her before she turned 30. She was 35 years old when the show debuted in March 1985. Cybill Lynn Shepherd was born on February 18, 1950 in Memphis, Tennessee, the daughter of a homemaker and a small business owner. She was crowned Miss Teenage Memphis at 16 and won the National Model of the Year title at 18, becoming a fixture on magazine covers throughout the late 1960s. A 1970 Glamour cover reportedly caught the eye of director Peter Bogdanovich, who cast her in The Last Picture Show, 1971, launching her film career and beginning an 8-year romantic relationship with Bogdanovich that also ended his marriage. She followed with acclaimed roles in The Heartbreak Kid, 1972, and, most memorably, as Betsy in Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, 1976. But 2 consecutive Bogdanovich-directed box office disasters, Daisy Miller and At Long Last Love, nearly destroyed her career by the mid-1970s, and she retreated to regional theater in her home state to rebuild. Moonlighting changed everything again. Shepherd won 2 Golden Globe Awards for the role of Maddie Hayes, and the show's electric, combative chemistry between her and an almost entirely unknown co-star named Bruce Willis became a genuine cultural event, one of the first television series ever nominated for both Best Drama and Best Comedy by the Directors Guild of America in the same year. It was Orson Welles himself, in fact, whom a younger Shepherd had once turned to for career advice during her lean years, and who encouraged her to rebuild her craft on stage rather than chase Los Angeles casting directors, guidance she credited years later for the discipline that carried her through Maddie Hayes. Off-screen, her personal life moved just as fast. She married chiropractor Bruce Oppenheim in 1987 and gave birth to twins, Cyrus and Ariel, during the show's 4th season. A pregnancy the writers famously had to work around on screen, dressing Shepherd in oversized coats and elaborate blocking to hide the growing bump. That marriage ended in divorce in 1990. following an earlier marriage to David Ford that produced her eldest daughter, Clementine, now an actress in her own right. Shepard was later engaged for several years to businessman Andrei Nikolaevich, though the engagement ended in 2015. After Moonlighting ended in 1989, Shepard continued to work steadily, starring in her own long-running semi-autobiographical sitcom, Cybill, from 1995 to 1998, which brought her a third Golden Globe. Later television work included recurring roles on The L Word and Psych. She has remained a visible, outspoken advocate throughout her career for gay rights, abortion rights, and civil rights causes, receiving recognition from both the Human Rights Campaign and Memphis's National Civil Rights Museum. As of 2026, Cybill Shepard is 76 years old. The model who was once told her early films had ended her career instead spent the next 5 decades proving exactly how wrong that verdict was. And finally, him. The wisecracking, motor-mouthed private detective who turned a mid-season network replacement show into a genuine phenomenon and, almost as a side effect, made Bruce Willis one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. Before Moonlighting, Willis was a virtual unknown, a former bartender and security guard with a handful of commercials and off-Broadway credits to his name, chosen for the role of David Addison over more than 2,000 other actors who auditioned. He was 29 years old when the pilot aired on March 3, 1985, and neither he nor almost anyone else involved with the show had any real idea what was about to happen. Walter Bruce Willis was born on March 19, 1955, in Idar Oberstein, West Germany, the son of an American soldier father and a German mother who worked as a bank teller. The family relocated to Carneys Point, New Jersey, when Bruce was 2, and he grew up in a working-class household, developing a childhood stutter that he later said acting on stage helped him overcome. After high school, he took a series of odd jobs, eventually finding steady work bartending in New York City, where, according to Hollywood legend that Willis has confirmed in interviews, a casting director spotted him and offered him a small role in a film. His casting as David Addison, opposite an already established star in Cybill Shepard, was a genuine gamble by the network, and it paid off spectacularly. Willis won both an Emmy Award and a Golden Globe for the role in 1987, and the show's rapid-fire, overlapping screwball dialogue turned him into a household name almost overnight. He parlayed that fame into film work even while still shooting the series, and by 1988, the same year Moonlighting was winding down, he had become John McClane in Die Hard, the role that would define the rest of his career and turn him into one of the defining action stars of his generation. Across more than 100 films over the following 3 decades, including Pulp Fiction, 12 Monkeys, The Fifth Element, Armageddon, and The Sixth Sense. Collectively, his films have grossed well over $2.5 billion worldwide. His personal life played out just as publicly. He married actress Demi Moore in 1987, near the height of Moonlighting mania, and the couple had 3 daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, before divorcing in 2000. The two have remained close and notably amicable in the decades since, even sharing holidays together as an extended family. Willis married model Emma Hemming in 2009, and the couple have 2 more daughters, Mabel and Evelyn. In March 2022, Willis's family announced he was retiring from acting following a diagnosis of aphasia, a condition affecting language and communication. In February 2023, the family shared a further, more specific diagnosis, frontotemporal dementia, a progressive neurological condition that most often strikes people far younger than typical dementia patients. Since then, Emma Hemming Willis has become a prominent public advocate for FTD awareness and caregiver support, writing and speaking openly about the family's experience in an effort to help others facing the same disease. As of 2026, Bruce Willis is 71 years old, living at home surrounded by his large blended family, no longer working, but, by every account from those closest to him, deeply loved and carefully cared for. The former New Jersey bartender, who talked his way into a career against more than 2,000 other hopefuls, spent nearly 40 years as one of the most bankable stars alive. And today, his family's openness about his illness has quietly become its own kind of legacy. One neither he nor anyone watching Moonlighting in 1985 could ever have imagined. There it is, an entire hidden world behind the offices of Blue Moon Investigations. A censorship scandal that nearly ended one career before Moonlighting quietly resurrected it. A pancreatic cancer diagnosis that took one of the kindest men in the ensemble far too soon. A rejected first audition that turned into 2 Emmy Awards for someone else entirely. And at the center of it all, a former bartender who became one of the biggest stars in the world, now facing the hardest role of his life without a script, a co-star, or a studio audience to help him through it. Some found reinvention decades after the cameras stopped rolling. Others never got the chance to grow old at all. A few are still working today, more than 40 years after a strange little detective agency pilot first aired on a Sunday night in March 1985. A pilot so unconventional, so unlike anything else on the schedule, that network executives reportedly weren't sure what to make of it until the ratings numbers came back and told them exactly what they had. But all of them are part of one story, about how 4 short seasons in front of a camera can become 40 years of memory, and about the gap between the characters bantering on screen and the real complicated unscripted lives the people playing them went home to live. Blue Moon Investigations closed its doors for good on May 14, 1989. The people who worked there never really did. Tell us in the comments, which of these stories surprised you the most? And where in the world are you watching from today? If you want to keep finding the real stories behind the classic shows and the people who created them, subscribe to this channel and ring the bell. Every week, we go past the legend and into the life.